El Paso, Texas is marketed as America's safest city.
4 of the nation's largest cities with the lowest rates of violent crime are in border states: San Diego, Phoenix, Austin, and right here in El Paso.
I certainly think that El Paso is the safest city for a number of reasons. We don't have wild public health issues. We don't have issues with violent crime.
We are the safest city in the U.S. with more than 500,000 people, but because of our location, our proximity to the border, many times you will get a lot of questions about safety, about security.
And it's sitting right next to Juarez, Mexico, the most dangerous city in the Western Hemisphere.
Juarez, Mexico, just across the border from El Paso, Texas, has earned the reputation of being the most deadly city in the world.
The irony that split between those two cities allows El Paso to be the operational base for all sorts of illegal activity.
It is the safest large city in America. It's run by the cartel. And the law enforcement, for the most part, is bought and paid for. Not a lot of people have respect for police. The criminals certainly don't. But what they have fear of is an organization that doesn't have Fourth Amendment and doesn't use jail cells, and that's a cartel.
Juarez is the most violent city in the world, ahead of countries like Colombia, Iraq, Afghanistan, and most of those countries are at war.
Cartel wants El Paso to be the shiny penny where everything is good, don't look behind the curtain over here, everything is wonderful. And so it's known by the gang members and the criminals in all the area. You draw attention, you hurt a police officer, you do anything that interferes with their business, they'll melt you in a bucket of acid and not think twice about it.
There's an enormous amount of corruption in El Paso. Some of it is just straight up greed. It's cartels with lots of money and they're willing to pay. They consider those payments to be essentially insurance. It's their overhead operating cost. They need to have safety and security for the movement of their drug loads. And they do that by buying police.
The cartels have got businesses that are worth more than a couple $100 billion. And when you have that much money, money talks.
Farrell says the cartel's ability to completely control the El Paso region paved the way for a narco-terror partnership that many in government believed could never happen.
At one point, there's a school of thought that said that the cartels would never cooperate with terrorists because they'd be undercutting their own business. It simply isn't true. If you want to move something from point A to point B, a contraband item, and you need their assistance, there's a price tag with it. It's all about making money.
If you open up the Al-Qaeda training manual, it's basically a book on how to be a criminal in a westernized world. Everything that narcos do and that they do when they come over into the United States is the same thing that they're teaching their operatives to do as well, because it's quick, easy ways to get money without being tracked. And it's big money.
There are militant Islamists, jihadis, in Mexico teaching and helping the cartels to perfect their poppy harvesting techniques.
They serve as another purpose as well as narcotics. They use their Middle Eastern experience of fighting for decades to train the cartel armies.
The best thing that they have going for them is that we're predisposed based on, and when I say we, I mean the West in general, as they understand Islamist ideology, they figure it's opposed to narcotics trafficking in general, and therefore that jihadists would never work with narcotics guys. And what you learn when you study this ideology is that Islamic supremacism is in many ways mainly a way to rationalize doing things that would otherwise be against the law as long as they further the cause.
So is El Paso, for lack of a better term, a narco-terror cell in the United States?
Yes.
No doubt.
No doubt.
I think this whole story, this whole narrative is a game changer on the border debate, because what we're talking about is a national security threat. This is a question of whether or not our border is secure from terrorists who want to destroy America.
Farrell says that the North American narco-terror network is what allowed al-Qaeda operatives to move freely inside the United States.
For Shukr Juma to travel into the United States with El Banay is a calculated risk. because of the vulnerability to them being most wanted terrorists and why they would fly into the United States. The flip side of that is that, from their perspective, there's no more secure place to operate in the United States because of the level of compromise in El Paso. They had a very high assurance that there'd be no action taken against them.
Once they landed in this remote airport community, Farrell says Shukra Juma and El Benet traveled to a private home to meet with operatives working in and around the El Paso area.
Imad Karakra, who goes by the nickname Jaime Karakra or Imad, is a logistician and transportation operative for militant Islamists in the United States. He moves people, money, drugs, weapons from El Paso up to Chicago, over to Brooklyn, New York, and Saddlebrook, New Jersey. He's been described to me by law enforcement as a crazy, dangerous thug. Imad Karakra is a jihadi operative working on United States soil in El Paso and Chicago. And over the course of our investigation, law enforcement at several levels have confirmed to me exactly who Karakra is and what he's done.
Also in the meeting, a truck driver named Hector Pedroza Huerta.
Hector Pedroza is an illegal alien who worked for a large transportation services company in El Paso, multiple DUI violations, and a great close friend of Karakra.
Farrell says his sources confirmed that both men had ties to the Vicente Carrillo Fuentes cartel and operated out of small businesses along the U.S.-Mexican border.
Hector and Karakra hung out together at a string of used car lots on a road called Donovan.
The businesses themselves may be legitimately licensed and formed, and the owners may be law-abiding persons, but I'm just telling you that this collection of guys that we've been talking about, we're operating out of, and you'll see auto sales, the first one, the second one, and then the third one. And these are places where they hung out.
Farrell says the main purpose of the meeting was to identify terror targets in the United States.
What was the target then they decided on?
So there's two targets. If you think back to 2009 and sort of the status of Oprah Winfrey and what her position was and what her influence was, and they decided to go after her studios in Chicago. And then the other was the Sears Tower, which obviously is a huge landmark and symbolic of the city of Chicago itself.